What if I told you the very way you've been visualizing is the reason it's not working? You close your eyes, build a perfect mental movie, and nothing. Days, weeks, maybe months go by, and reality stays stubbornly the same. It's frustrating, almost like the universe is ignoring you. But here's the truth Neville Goddard understood. An image without feeling is just a picture in your head, not a seed in your reality. Most people treat visualization like a wish list for the universe, forgetting that feeling is the secret. Neville's standard wasn't make it pretty, it was make it real. If you're not embodying the scene, if you're not living in the end visualization as though it's happening right now, you're just watching your desire from a distance. And that distance is exactly what keeps it away. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why mental images without emotion fall flat, the common traps that even seasoned manifestors fall into, and how a single shift can make your Neville visualization technique feel alive, so alive that your body responds as if it's already done. Once you get this, manifestation stops feeling like work and starts feeling inevitable. Most people hear about visualization and instantly imagine sitting back, closing their eyes, and running a little movie in their mind. They think the more vivid the mental image, the more likely it is to come true. It sounds logical, right? But here's the hidden twist. Without the emotional spark, that mental movie is like a film projector with no power. The picture is there, but it's cold. And that's exactly why so many say, my visualization's not working. Neville Goddard used to shake his head at this. He knew that imagination creates reality, but only when it's charged with feeling. He never told people to simply see a scene. His emphasis was always on living in the end visualization. That's when you embody the scene so fully that it feels like a moment you've already lived, not one you're hoping will happen. The image is only the container. The feeling is the electricity running through it. Think of it like sending a letter with no address. You can decorate the envelope, write beautifully inside, even seal it with wax, but without the destination, it never arrives. Your mental image without emotion is exactly that, a letter floating nowhere. The subconscious, which responds to conviction and not just pretty pictures, won't pick it up unless it's stamped with the sensation of already having it. So if you've been doing your Neville visualization technique and wondering why nothing's showing up, maybe the issue isn't the image itself. Maybe it's that you've been treating it like a photograph instead of a memory. And when you see the difference, you'll start to notice the deeper standard Neville actually set. Neville Goddard never softened his message. If you're not feeling the scene as though it's happening right now, you're not doing it. Harsh? Maybe. But he understood something most people miss. The mind doesn't create reality through wishful thinking, but through the state it accepts as true. That's the essence of the law of assumption. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and life bends to match it. It's not about watching yourself win, it's about already being the winner. When Neville spoke about love in the end, he wasn't asking for blind faith or fantasy. He was talking about embodying the scene so completely that your nervous system, your breath, even the tiny muscles in your face shift as if the desire were a fact. You don't try to feel it. You become the person who already has it. The mental image with emotion isn't decoration, it's transformation in disguise. Imagine slipping into a role so convincingly that you forget it's acting. You don't just say the lines, you react, laugh, and move like the character would. That's how Neville's visualization technique works when it's alive. You're no longer thinking about the scene. You're in it, hearing the sounds, touching the textures, feeling the weight of the moment. The outer world becomes a delayed reflection of that inner reality. And this is where many start to see the gap between what they've been doing and what Neville meant. They realize they've been standing outside the window, looking in, instead of walking through the door. But what happens if the scene looks perfect in your mind, yet nothing changes? That's where the next problem shows up. A mental image on its own is like a beautifully wrapped gift box that's completely empty inside. It might look good in your mind, but when the subconscious opens it and finds nothing of emotional weight, it quietly sets it aside. This is why so many people say, I'm doing the Neville visualization technique, but it's not working. They're projecting a scene, but it's hollow, and the subconscious doesn't respond to hollow. Think of the subconscious as a musician. It doesn't just read the notes on a page, it feels the music. You could hand it the most technically perfect score, but if there's no emotion behind the performance, it's just noise. In the same way, an image without feeling is just static. It doesn't carry the charge that says, this is real. That charge is what the law of assumption thrives on. Neville taught that feeling is the secret, because it bypasses the surface mind and imprints directly on the deeper layers of consciousness. Your body reacts, your breath changes, and suddenly it's not pretend anymore. The subconscious accepts it as memory, not imagination, and once it's memory, the outer world rearranges to stay consistent with it, because imagination creates reality when it's fused with sensation. The danger. People often try to fix the problem by adding more detail, more colors, more scenery, more characters, thinking that will make it work. But in reality, this only leads to the next trap, and it's one that silently sabotages even the most disciplined visualizers. One of the sneakiest mistakes in the Neville visualization technique is overcomplication. People think, if I can make my scene more detailed, it'll feel more real. So they start adding extra colors, background noise, specific clothing, the exact weather, and before they know it, they're so busy getting it right that the feeling slips away. The scene becomes a mental construction project instead of a lived experience. Neville never asked you to build an entire movie set in your mind. In fact, he warned that the more you try to perfect every detail, the more tension you introduce. And tension is the exact opposite of the relaxed ease the law of assumption requires. You can't live in the end visualization if you're constantly checking whether the curtains are the right shade or the cup is in the right hand. It's like trying to remember a dream by forcing it. The harder you push, the faster it fades. When visualization becomes a checklist instead of a sensation, you're back in the head, not in the heart. And a mental image with emotion can't breathe in that kind of environment. It's not about perfecting the picture, it's about surrendering into the feeling that it's already true. And here's where a subtle but critical problem shows up for many. Even when they do keep things simple, they often watch themselves in the scene as if from a distance. And without realizing it, this looking at position keeps them locked outside of their own desire. Here's a mistake almost no one talks about. Watching yourself in your own visualization sounds harmless, right? But when you see yourself as if you're in a movie, from the outside, you're telling your subconscious, this isn't me yet, I'm just looking at it. And under the law of assumption, that subtle distance is enough to keep the experience locked in the future where it never arrives. Neville was clear. You must embody the scene, not spectate. If you're visualizing holding a letter of acceptance, you shouldn't see yourself across the room smiling. You should feel the texture of the paper between your fingers, the weight of it in your hand, the rush in your chest. You're not an audience member. You're the lead character, and the camera is in your own eyes. Think of it like the difference between watching a cooking show and actually tasting the food. You can watch the most delicious dish being made, but until the flavor hits your tongue, it's just theory. Visualization works the same way. The taste is the feeling, and the perspective must be from inside the moment. That's how the Neville visualization technique plants the experience as a now instead of a someday. Once you step inside the frame, something shifts. The sounds, the textures, even the air in the scene start to feel different. And that's when you discover the true activation key Neville spoke about, the one that turns an idle thought into a living, breathing reality. Neville Goddard's most repeated truth was simple but radical. Feeling is the secret. Not wishing, not hoping, not daydreaming, feeling. In the Neville visualization technique, the mental image is just the stage. It's the emotional charge that flips the switch. Without that, the scene stays like a light bulb with no current running through it. The moment you feel it as real, you've thrown the switch, and reality begins its quiet rearrangement. This is why some people manifest with what looks like effortless luck. They may not even visualize much, but when they think of their desire, they slip into the sensation of already having it. That's living in the end. The law of assumption responds to the state you hold, and feeling is the bridge that connects imagination to the physical world. A mental image with emotion works like a seed. You can plant 1,000 seeds in dry soil and see nothing, or plant one in rich, watered ground and watch it sprout quickly. The water here is your emotional conviction, the warmth of knowing. Neville's advice wasn't to endlessly rehearse the picture, but to saturate it with the felt reality of this is mine now. And the beauty is, this doesn't require strain. It's not about forcing emotion, but about gently breathing into the scene until it settles into you, which leads to one of Neville's most practical tips, simplifying the whole process so you can step right into the role without overthinking it. Neville Goddard often recommended choosing a short, vivid scene that naturally implies your desire is already fulfilled. Not a 5-minute mental movie, just a few seconds repeated until it feels second nature. The key is to strip away anything unnecessary so you can fully embody the scene. Think of it like a snapshot, but one you can step inside of and live from. Let's say your goal is financial freedom. Instead of imagining a dozen scenarios, signing contracts, counting stacks of cash, buying a car, pick one simple moment, checking your bank balance and feeling deep relief. In your live in the end visualization, see the numbers, feel your shoulders drop, hear yourself exhale. That single moment, repeated nightly, imprints faster than a sprawling fantasy that's hard to maintain. Neville's method is powerful because it directs all your attention into the feeling and the now, not into building elaborate scenery. You hear the sounds, touch the textures, sense the temperature in the room. You let your imagination create reality by making it feel like a genuine memory. The subconscious doesn't argue with memory, it simply assumes it's true. And here's the best part. When you do this right, there's a point where the scene starts to take on a life of its own. You stop doing it and start experiencing it. That's when the signs appear, subtle at first, but unmistakable once you know what to look for. You'll know your Neville visualization technique has crossed from imagination into lived experience when the scene starts affecting your body without effort. Maybe you catch yourself smiling without meaning to, or your breathing slows as if you've actually arrived at that moment. These are the first hints that you're not just visualizing, you're living in the end. Another sign is the loss of awareness of the current room. The hum of the fridge, the feel of the chair beneath you, all of it fades as the mental image with emotion pulls you deeper inside. You're not just picturing it, you're in it. Neville would say this is when the outer world begins to catch up, because the inner reality has been fully accepted. Sometimes there's an afterglow that lingers even when you open your eyes. It might be a calm certainty or a quiet excitement that carries through your day. This isn't a high-energy rush. It's more like the satisfaction after finishing a good conversation or returning from a place you love. The feeling is subtle, but it doesn't let go. And perhaps the clearest indicator, it stops feeling like an exercise and starts feeling like a memory. You're no longer trying to convince yourself, you simply know. And that knowing is what you'll carry into the next stage, persistence, until that memory becomes the most natural thing in the world. Neville Goddard never promised instant results. He spoke of persistence, not the kind where you strain or beg, but the gentle consistency of returning to the same short scene night after night until it's second nature. This is where most people fall off. They try a live in the end visualization for 3 nights, see no change and abandon it. But persistence is how the subconscious moves from this is possible to this is real. When you revisit the same mental image with emotion regularly, the details stop feeling invented. That pretend edge dissolves, and the scene feels as familiar as your own home. It's no longer visualization not working, it's reality rehearsed so often, it becomes memory. And memories to the subconscious are facts that must be expressed. Think of it like learning a song on guitar. At first, every chord feels forced, every transition awkward, but the more you repeat it, the less you think about the mechanics. Your fingers just know. The law of assumption works the same way. The more natural the state feels, the faster life harmonizes with it. And here's the irony. The moment it feels completely normal inside, you stop looking for proof outside. You're not waiting anymore, you're being. And that's exactly when reality tends to deliver, as if it had been on its way the whole time. When a scene has been felt, embodied, and persisted in until it feels like a memory, something remarkable happens. It begins to express itself in your outer world without strain. This is the essence of the Neville visualization technique, inner acceptance before outer evidence. You're no longer trying to make it happen, you're simply living from the state where it's already done. Neville called this the law of assumption in action. The world can't help but reflect the state you occupy. When your mental image with emotion is fully accepted as fact, reality bends to match it. It might come through a sudden opportunity, a casual meeting or what others call coincidence, but you'll recognize it immediately because it will feel like stepping into the very scene you've been visiting in imagination. And here's the magic. You won't be surprised. There's no shock or disbelief, just a quiet, of course, because you've already lived it 100 times in the stillness of your mind. The outer event feels inevitable, natural, almost overdue. That's when you understand why Neville insisted on living in the end visualization instead of chasing desires in the future. This is where the real shift in consciousness happens. You start to trust that imagination creates reality, and the next desire becomes easier to embody. You've proven it to yourself. And now with the foundation set, we can step into the introduction that will hook your audience from the very first line. So now you know, it's not about stacking more detail, forcing the picture, or endlessly trying to see it. It's about stepping into the scene, feeling it as though it's already yours, and returning to it until it feels as natural as breathing. That's when the law of assumption moves from theory to lived reality. Ask yourself right now, have I been watching my desire from the outside or living inside it? Have I been treating it like a distant hope, or as something I already own in consciousness? The answer to those questions will tell you exactly why your visualization hasn't been working and how quickly it can start. Remember, imagination creates reality. The scene you embody tonight could be the life you walk into tomorrow. So don't just understand Neville's teaching, test it, experience it, prove it to yourself. If you found this valuable, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. There's so much more to uncover about Neville Goddard's methods, and you won't want to miss the next step in mastering the art of conscious creation.